Hi, I'm Chris Muchler, Principal Enterprise Architect and VCDX 257 from virtualelephant.com. And in this video, we're going to spend a few minutes talking about Kubernetes and how important it is from a continuous learning perspective for you in 2024. Let's get started. One of the things that I commonly talk to VCDX candidates about in the workshop is being a continuous learner. Being a continuous learner is going to be critical, I think, in 2024 as we consider the environment that we're finding ourselves in. Many of the top technology vendors, technology firms, and organizations have gone under significant layoffs in the last 18 to 24 months. And as a result, that means that there's a lot of skilled technologists out there in the job market competing over the same limited number of jobs that exist. And while new technologies like generative AI are up and coming and increasing the demand for individuals who have a skill set in that area, the job market is an extremely competitive place today. And as I've been thinking about this, especially as it relates to me and the acquisition that VMware went under through Broadcom at the end of the year, and thinking about where my career might be taking me, I found myself falling back on my skill set to be a continuous learner. And it is a skill set. Spending time finding ways to improve our skill sets in and of itself is a critical skill that each one of us needs to have. And so as I've thought about that the last few months, I've been thinking about what key areas I should be focusing my time on and learning about to be able to make my marketability out in the job market better or stand out compared to the other thousands of individuals who are looking for new jobs right now. And so I've published various videos. I had a video recently on what certifications I think are most critical. And I implore you to go and watch that video and consider for yourself what areas you want to focus on in 2024 and perhaps what certifications you want to go after to be able to solidify your understanding and your marketability out there in the job market if you're either looking now or really just preparing yourself for the next step in your career that you've chosen. And so as I've been thinking about this, I think the one area that I really keep coming back to is Kubernetes. There is a huge opportunity for both SREs, architects, and developers from an application standpoint, from an infrastructure standpoint, to be able to learn so much around the Kubernetes ecosystem to be able to make themselves highly marketable in this competitive job market that we find ourselves in. There's so much in the CNCF landscape that we can focus on. So whether you have a networking background or a storage background, an SRE background, or an application developer background, there's so many areas within that CNCF landscape that is supporting Kubernetes that you have a unique opportunity to drill into, learn more about, and augment your skill set from a Kubernetes perspective. And there's many different trainings out there, through Udemy, through Pluralsight, just on the internet, YouTube. Obviously, I think YouTube is a massive resource for us as we're learning new technologies. There's lots of great content creators out there in the Kubernetes space who are documenting what they're doing and talking about publicly what they're doing. And then certainly there's all sorts of conferences that we can be attending, from the local Kubernetes conferences that are out there to the larger KubeCons that are being held globally each year. There's a huge opportunity for both networking between companies, figuring out which startups are out there, which new technologies or open source projects really seem to be, being grasped on by enterprises. And then certainly in the private enterprise space, there's huge opportunity. Organizations are dying for people who have a solid foundation in the Kubernetes ecosystem to come in and help them modernize their applications and modernize their infrastructure to be able to support Kubernetes at large scale across their organizations. I believe that spending time learning more about Kubernetes single-handedly will be the most effective use of your time this year. And if you're already a subject matter expert in Kubernetes or work for one of the many startups or open source projects that are out there supporting the ecosystem, I highly encourage you to generate new content that others who are up and coming can leverage to be able to augment their skill set, to be able to learn more. And I would certainly encourage all of the open source projects and the CNCF projects that when you're writing your documentation, write it from the perspective of running these things at scale inside of a data center versus documenting how to get something up and running on your laptop. While that might be useful for the individual when they're very first starting out and just learning the very basics of Kubernetes, when we talk about augmenting our skill sets to be able to provide marketability for ourselves out in the job market, we really need to be able to learn and understand how to run Kubernetes within a data center and not within a laptop or a localized virtual machine that only we have access to. So much more complexity exists when we look at Kubernetes and we look at running applications inside of Kubernetes when we're talking about how are we going to be accessing this remotely? How will our end users be interacting with this UI or with this monitoring tool that we've developed or this metric server that we're sending data to? How are we accessing those things remotely outside of a laptop from an enterprise class data center or from a public cloud, whether it's Azure or AWS or GCE or even Oracle or one of the other dozens that exist out there? Write your documentation from that perspective so that those individuals who are just up and coming can start to consume that information immediately, start internalizing it to be able to allow them to understand what their job role might look like as they make this transition from where they are today to where they hope to be with Kubernetes in the future. If you've enjoyed this content, I highly encourage you to subscribe to my Virtual Elephant channel. Make sure you turn on the notifications and hit that like button so that you can see new content as it gets released each week. Please make sure that you leave a comment below and let me know what you think. Let me know what areas within the Kubernetes ecosystem you're focused on this year in 2024. And be sure to reach out to me on Twitter and let me know what you think at Chris Mutchler. I look forward to talking to you next time.